Porsche just reported a 99% profit collapse. You heard that right. 99%. The German luxury giant that's dominated racetracks and driveways for decades is bleeding money faster than a blown head gasket. But here's what they're not telling you about this crisis. The emissions fraud that started it all could trigger a lifetime ban from the US market. The hidden software that fooled regulators for years just exploded into a multi-billion-dollar nightmare. Your wallet, your safety, and every luxury car purchase you'll ever make just changed forever. The scandal that's destroying Porsche didn't start with their recent profit collapse. It started with illegal defeat devices hidden in their Cayenne and Macan models. Software designed to cheat emissions tests while your SUV pumped out pollution levels that would make a coal plant blush. Here's how the scam worked. Porsche installed sophisticated software that could detect when a vehicle was undergoing emissions testing. The moment sensors identified the specific conditions of a laboratory test, the software would automatically switch the engine into a clean mode. Emissions would drop to legal levels, performance would be sacrificed, the car would pass with flying colors. But the second that Cayenne or Macan hit real roads, the software switched back to a high performance, high pollution mode. Your luxury SUV was suddenly pumping out nitrogen oxides at levels up to 40 times higher than what regulators approved. The air you breathe, the environment your kids grow up in, all compromised so Porsche could deliver the power and fuel economy they promised. The real-world pollution levels were catastrophic. Laboratory results showed these vehicles meeting strict EPA standards. Meanwhile, independent testing revealed emissions that violated every clean air regulation on the books. Porsche wasn't just bending rules, they were obliterating them with software that made their vehicles environmental disasters disguised as premium machines. Why did regulators miss this for so long? The defeat devices were incredibly sophisticated. They monitored steering wheel position, ambient temperature, barometric pressure, and even the pattern of acceleration during testing. If all conditions matched the predictable laboratory environment, the cheat mode activated. Real-world driving, with its unpredictable patterns and varying conditions, triggered the high pollution mode every single time. This connects directly to Volkswagen's Dieselgate scandal, but Porsche's version was even more insidious. While Volkswagen got caught first, Porsche's defeat devices were more advanced, harder to detect, and installed across a wider range of luxury vehicles. The software engineers didn't just copy Volkswagen's approach, they perfected it. The technical breakdown reveals the true scope of this fraud. The defeat device monitored dozens of parameters simultaneously. Engine temperature had to match laboratory conditions exactly. Vehicle speed patterns had to follow the precise acceleration and deceleration cycles of official testing. Even the duration of the test cycle was monitored. Miss any parameter and the vehicle would default to its real-world high pollution mode. But here's the part that should terrify every car owner. This wasn't a rogue engineering team making unauthorized modifications. This was a systematic company-wide effort to circumvent environmental regulations while charging premium prices for vehicles that couldn't deliver promised performance without breaking the law. The software wasn't just sophisticated, it was designed to be invisible. Regular diagnostic scans couldn't detect it. Independent mechanics had no way to identify the defeat devices. Even Porsche's own service technicians were kept in the dark about the true nature of the software they were updating during routine maintenance. The scope of affected vehicles is staggering. Hundreds of thousands of Cayenne and Macan models sold across multiple model years contain these illegal defeat devices. Every owner thought they were driving a clean, efficient luxury SUV. And in reality, they were operating mobile pollution generators that violated federal law every time they left the driveway. The damage spreads fast when you consider the secondary effects. Used car values for affected models have collapsed. Insurance companies are reassessing coverage for vehicles with known defeat devices. State emissions testing programs are scrambling to update their procedures to catch similar cheating in the future. Porsche's executives knew exactly what they were doing. Internal documents reveal discussions about the risk of detection and the potential financial consequences. They calculated that the profits from selling high-performance luxury SUVs would outweigh any potential fines or penalties. They were catastrophically wrong. The emissions fraud created a foundation of lies that's now crumbling under the weight of regulatory scrutiny, consumer lawsuits, and a complete loss of trust in the brand. Every financial disaster, every legal consequence, every threat to their U.S. market access traces back to the decision to install defeat devices instead of engineering vehicles that could meet emission standards. Honestly, this isn't just about environmental regulations. It's about a luxury brand that built its reputation on engineering excellence while systematically cheating the systems designed to protect public health. The numbers behind Porsche's collapse are brutal. We're talking about a 99% profit drop that wiped out nearly everything they built over decades of premium pricing and luxury positioning. But that's just the beginning of their financial nightmare. Porsche has already paid over $1.2 billion in fines and penalties directly related to their emissions fraud. That's not a one-time hit. That's money hemorrhaging out of their accounts while lawsuits pile up faster than they can count them. The EPA slammed them with penalties that make other automotive fines look like parking tickets. CARB followed with their own enforcement actions that added hundreds of millions more to the damage. But here's where it gets worse. Those $1.2 billion in penalties are just the government's opening move. Ongoing lawsuits from consumers and environmental groups are demanding damages that could push the total cost into the tens of billions. Every Cayenne and Macan owner who got fooled by the defeat devices wants compensation for decreased vehicle values, excess fuel costs, and the environmental damage they unknowingly caused. The stock price collapse tells the real story of investor confidence. Since the emissions scandal broke wide open, Porsche's market value has been cut in half. Institutional investors who poured money into the luxury automaker are now staring at portfolio losses that make grown fund managers cry. And the company that once commanded premium valuations is now trading like a distressed asset. Recall costs are eating them alive from the inside. Hundreds of thousands of affected vehicles need software updates, hardware modifications, and in some cases, complete engine replacements. Each recall notice costs Porsche an average of $1,500 per vehicle. Multiply that by the massive number of affected Cayennes and Macans, and you're looking at recall expenses that dwarf most automakers' annual profits. Lost sales projections in the U.S. market paint an even grimmer picture. American buyers who once lined up for Porsche SUVs are now running toward competitors. The brand damage from systematic cheating has created a trust deficit that's costing them thousands of sales every month. Each lost sale isn't just missing revenue, it's a customer who might never come back to the brand. The ripple effects are devastating their entire business model. Porsche built their pricing strategy on exclusivity and engineering excellence. When that engineering excellence gets exposed as systematic fraud, the premium pricing becomes impossible to justify. Dealers are offering discounts they never had to consider before. Lease programs are struggling because residual values have collapsed. Compare this to other automotive scandals, and Porsche's situation looks uniquely catastrophic. Volkswagen's Dieselgate cost them over $30 billion, but they had volume sales across multiple brands to absorb the hit. Toyota's unintended acceleration crisis damaged their reputation but didn't expose systematic fraud. GM's ignition switch scandal was deadly serious but affected a smaller percentage of their total sales. Porsche doesn't have those buffers. They're a luxury brand that depends on reputation and trust more than any volume manufacturer. When that trust gets shattered by emissions fraud, the financial consequences hit harder and last longer. Their entire business model assumes customers will pay premium prices for premium engineering. Remove the trust in that engineering, and the premium pricing collapses. The operational losses are accelerating beyond what anyone predicted. That 99% profit collapse isn't a temporary dip. It's the result of fundamental damage to their cost structure and revenue streams. Legal fees alone are consuming millions every month as they fight battles on multiple fronts. Settlement negotiations with class action lawyers are draining resources that should be funding new product development. Insurance costs have skyrocketed as carriers reassess the risk of covering a company with massive legal exposure. Credit ratings have been downgraded, making it more expensive to borrow money for operations and expansion. Banking relationships that took decades to build are now under strain as lenders worry about Porsche's ability to service debt while fighting emissions fraud lawsuits. The timing couldn't be worse for their electric vehicle transition. Just when they need maximum financial resources to compete with Tesla and Chinese EV manufacturers, they're hemorrhaging money on legal settlements and recall costs. The Taycan development program that should be generating profits is instead competing for resources with emissions fraud cleanup costs. Manufacturing efficiency has taken a massive hit as production lines get disrupted for recall work. Assembly workers who should be building new vehicles are instead retrofitting older models with updated software and hardware. The productivity losses compound the direct costs of the recalls themselves. This financial devastation isn't just about past mistakes, it's about a company that's burning through cash reserves while trying to rebuild credibility in a market that's rapidly losing patience with traditional luxury brands. And the EPA's response to Porsche's emissions fraud has been swift and merciless. They're not just handing out fines, they're building a case that could permanently reshape how luxury automakers operate in the United States. The Environmental Protection Agency has launched the most comprehensive investigation in their history, targeting not just the defeat devices, but the entire corporate culture that allowed systematic cheating to flourish for years. CARB, California's Air Resources Board, has taken an even more aggressive stance. They've opened criminal investigations that go beyond corporate penalties and target individual executives who knew about the fraud. We're talking about potential prison time for Porsche leadership who signed off on installing defeat devices while lying to regulators about emissions compliance. The California investigations have uncovered internal emails and engineering documents that prove this wasn't an accident or oversight. Criminal charges against Porsche executives are already moving through the courts. The Justice Department has filed conspiracy charges against 3 former Porsche engineers and 2 current executives. These aren't civil penalties that companies can write off as business expenses. These are felony charges that carry prison sentences and personal financial destruction for the individuals involved. But here's the nuclear option that has Porsche's board of directors losing sleep. The lifetime ban threat isn't just political posturing. Federal regulators have the legal authority to revoke Porsche's ability to sell vehicles in the United States permanently. The Clean Air Act gives the EPA power to ban manufacturers who engage in systematic violations of emissions regulations. They've never used this authority against a major automaker, but Porsche's fraud is giving them the perfect test case. The precedent from other manufacturer penalties shows just how serious this threat really is. When Volkswagen got caught with Dieselgate, they paid over $30 billion in fines, but kept their right to sell cars in America. The difference is that Volkswagen cooperated with investigators and implemented comprehensive compliance programs. Porsche has been fighting the investigations, challenging the evidence, and refusing to admit the full scope of their fraud. The Justice Department is handling this case like an organized crime investigation. They've seized internal documents, interviewed hundreds of employees, and built a timeline that shows Porsche executives knew about the defeat devices years before regulators caught them. Federal prosecutors are treating this as a conspiracy to defraud the United States government, not just a regulatory violation. The legal strategy from federal agencies is designed to send a message to every automaker watching this case. They're not just going after the company, they're targeting individual executives with criminal charges that could result in decades in federal prison. The message is clear. Environmental fraud will be prosecuted as aggressively as financial fraud. State-level legal actions are multiplying the pressure from every direction. New York's Attorney General has filed racketeering charges under state RICO statutes. Texas is pursuing fraud charges that could result in triple damages. Florida has banned state agencies from purchasing Porsche vehicles until the emissions scandal is resolved. These state actions create a patchwork of legal problems that make it nearly impossible for Porsche to operate normally. The lifetime ban mechanism works through a simple but devastating process. If the EPA determines that Porsche engaged in systematic fraud that threatens public health, they can revoke the company's certificate of conformity. Without that certificate, Porsche cannot legally sell any vehicles in the United States. No new car sales, no imports, no dealer inventory, complete market exclusion. The legal timeline is accelerating toward a decision point that could reshape the entire automotive industry. Federal prosecutors have indicated they'll seek maximum penalties if Porsche continues fighting the charges instead of cooperating with investigations. The company has until early next year to reach a comprehensive settlement agreement or face the possibility of criminal trials that could drag on for years. Congressional hearings have added political pressure that makes compromise more difficult. House and Senate committees are demanding testimony from Porsche executives about the defeat devices and the corporate culture that enabled fraud. These aren't friendly regulatory discussions. These are public hearings designed to expose the full scope of environmental crimes committed by a foreign luxury brand. The international implications are staggering. European regulators are watching how American authorities. The government's response isn't just about punishing past crimes, it's about establishing deterrence that prevents future environmental fraud across the entire automotive industry. If you own a Cayenne or Macan affected by these defeat devices, your financial reality just changed overnight. The immediate effects on vehicle values are catastrophic. We're seeing resale prices drop by 20 to 30% in some markets as buyers flee from vehicles with known emissions fraud. The Cayenne you paid $80,000 for last year, it's now worth $55,000 on a good day. But the resale collapse is just the beginning of your problems. Insurance companies are reassessing coverage for vehicles with defeat devices. Some carriers are refusing to write new policies. Others are hiking premiums because they consider fraud-equipped vehicles a higher liability risk. Your monthly insurance costs could jump by hundreds of dollars simply because Porsche installed illegal software in your SUV. Warranty implications are getting messy fast. Porsche is claiming that software updates to remove defeat devices don't void your powertrain warranty, but here's what they're not telling you. Those software updates often reduce engine performance and fuel economy. When your turbo system fails 6 months after the emissions fix, Porsche's warranty department suddenly finds reasons to deny coverage. They'll claim the failure was caused by your driving habits, not their fraudulent software. The software updates themselves are creating new problems for owners. Porsche's emissions fix typically reduces horsepower by 15 to 20% while increasing fuel consumption. That high-performance SUV you bought for its power and efficiency now delivers neither. You're stuck with a neutered vehicle that can't perform like it did when you signed the purchase agreement. Your legal rights as an affected owner are stronger than Porsche wants you to believe. Federal law gives you the right to demand compensation for the decreased value of your vehicle caused by emissions fraud. You can also seek reimbursement for excess fuel costs if the software updates hurt your fuel economy. Some owners are successfully demanding Porsche buy back their vehicles at original purchase prices. Class action lawsuit opportunities are multiplying faster than Porsche can settle them. Major law firms are organizing owner groups to pursue damages for fraudulent advertising, decreased vehicle values, and environmental harm. If you join a class action, you could receive compensation that covers your financial losses, plus punitive damages designed to punish Porsche for systematic fraud. But here's the catch with class action settlements. The lawyers typically negotiate deals that give owners small cash payments while protecting Porsche from individual lawsuits. You might get a check for $2,000 while your vehicle lost $20,000 in value. Read the settlement terms carefully before accepting any class action deal. Service and parts availability concerns are becoming real problems for affected owners. Some Porsche dealers are struggling to get replacement parts for vehicles undergoing emissions recalls. Independent mechanics are refusing to work on cars with defeat devices because they don't want liability exposure. Your routine maintenance is getting more expensive and more complicated, and the recall process itself is creating headaches that Porsche didn't warn you about. Software updates require multiple dealer visits as technicians install patches, test systems, and recalibrate performance parameters. Some owners report spending weeks without their vehicles, while dealers struggle with complex recall procedures. Here's what Porsche isn't telling current owners about the long-term implications. If they lose their ability to sell new vehicles in the US, your service network could collapse. Dealer networks depend on new car sales to fund service departments. No new sales means fewer dealers, longer wait times for repairs, and higher service costs. The smart move for current owners is documenting everything related to your vehicle's performance and value before and after any emissions-related repairs. Keep detailed records of fuel economy, maintenance costs, and any performance issues. This documentation becomes crucial evidence if you decide to pursue individual legal action against Porsche. Your vehicle's trade-in value will likely never recover to pre-scandal levels. The emissions fraud has permanently damaged the reputation of affected models. Even after software fixes, buyers will always know these vehicles were designed to cheat environmental regulations. And the bottom line for current owners is harsh but simple. You're stuck with a depreciating asset from a company that systematically lied about what you were buying. Porsche's emission scandal just triggered a luxury car market earthquake that's reshaping how premium brands operate across the entire industry. German manufacturers are scrambling to distance themselves from the fraud while implementing emergency compliance programs that should have existed years ago. BMW immediately launched internal audits of their emission systems after Porsche's scandal broke. They're not taking chances with regulators who are now viewing every German luxury brand as potentially fraudulent. Mercedes-Benz has hired external compliance firms to verify their emissions data before submitting it to the EPA. Audi, still recovering from their own Dieselgate disasters, is facing renewed scrutiny that's forcing them to delay new model launches while proving their systems are clean. The panic among German automakers isn't just about reputation damage, it's about survival in a market where environmental fraud now carries the death penalty of permanent exclusion. Every luxury brand is realizing that Porsche's potential lifetime ban could happen to them if regulators find similar cheating in their vehicles. Increased scrutiny on luxury vehicle emissions has created a new reality where every premium automaker operates under a microscope. The EPA has tripled their emissions testing staff and implemented surprise audits that can shut down production lines overnight. Independent testing organizations are now conducting their own verification programs, publishing results that can destroy a luxury brand's credibility in days. The testing protocols that allowed Porsche to cheat for years have been completely overhauled. New EPA procedures include real-world driving simulations, portable emissions measurement systems, and software analysis that can detect defeat devices in minutes instead of years. Luxury automakers can no longer rely on predictable laboratory conditions to hide their true emissions performance. Changes in EPA testing procedures are forcing fundamental shifts in how luxury vehicles are engineered. The agency now requires manufacturers to provide complete software source code for emissions control systems. They're conducting random inspections of production facilities and demanding access to internal engineering documents. The days of hiding defeat devices behind sophisticated software are over. Impact on used luxury car prices extends far beyond Porsche's affected models. Buyers are now suspicious of any German luxury vehicle manufactured in the last decade. BMW X5 values have dropped 15% as buyers worry about undiscovered emissions fraud. Mercedes GLE prices are falling as consumers question whether any luxury SUV can deliver promised performance without cheating environmental regulations. The uncertainty is creating a buyer's market for luxury vehicles that's devastating dealer networks. Customers who once paid full sticker price for premium SUVs are now demanding significant discounts and extended warranties that cover potential emissions-related problems. Luxury car dealers are offering incentives they never had to consider when brand reputation alone drove sales. Consumer trust issues with premium brands have fundamentally altered buying patterns in the luxury market. Affluent buyers who once bought German luxury vehicles based on engineering reputation are now researching emissions compliance before making purchase decisions. The assumption that premium prices guarantee honest engineering has been shattered by systematic fraud. Lexus and Acura are capitalizing on German luxury brand trust issues by positioning themselves as honest alternatives to potentially fraudulent European competitors. Japanese luxury brands are emphasizing their clean emissions records and transparent testing procedures. Their marketing campaigns now focus on integrity and honesty rather than just performance and luxury features. Market share shifts to competitors are accelerating as luxury buyers abandon German brands for alternatives they perceive as more trustworthy. Tesla is gaining luxury SUV customers who no longer trust traditional premium automakers to deliver clean performance honestly. Genesis is attracting buyers who want luxury features without the risk of emissions fraud scandals. The luxury car market's response to Porsche's scandal reveals how quickly consumer confidence can evaporate when systematic fraud gets exposed. Premium brands that built their reputations over decades are watching market share disappear as buyers question whether any luxury automaker can be trusted to engineer vehicles honestly. The ripple effects are creating opportunities for brands that can prove their environmental compliance while delivering the performance luxury buyers expect. But for German luxury automakers, the damage spreads fast when customers realize that premium pricing doesn't guarantee honest engineering. The automotive industry's response to Porsche's scandal is reshaping how every manufacturer approaches emissions compliance. New testing protocols being implemented across the board make the old system look like a joke. The EPA now requires real-time monitoring of emissions control software during actual driving conditions, not just laboratory testing. Manufacturers can no longer predict when testing will occur or what conditions will be evaluated. Portable emissions measurement systems are now mandatory for all luxury vehicle certifications. These devices attach directly to vehicle exhaust systems during real-world driving and transmit data continuously to regulatory servers. There's no way to fool these systems with defeat devices because they monitor emissions performance under actual driving conditions that can't be predicted or controlled. Software monitoring requirements for all manufacturers have created a new compliance nightmare that's costing billions across the industry. Every line of emissions control code must now be documented, verified by independent auditors, and stored in government databases that regulators can access without warning. The days of hiding fraudulent software behind proprietary code protections are permanently over. The technology requirements go beyond just monitoring. Manufacturers must now install tamper-proof systems that alert regulators immediately if anyone attempts to modify emissions control software. These systems communicate directly with EPA servers, creating a permanent record of any changes to vehicle emissions performance. It's like having a federal agent monitoring every car's environmental compliance in real time. Independent verification has become mandatory for all emissions claims. Manufacturers can no longer self-certify their vehicles meet environmental standards. Third-party testing organizations now conduct surprise audits of production vehicles, purchasing cars directly from dealers and testing them without manufacturer knowledge. This eliminates the possibility of specially prepared test vehicles that don't represent actual production quality. The push toward electric vehicles is accelerating faster than anyone predicted, driven partly by manufacturers who want to avoid emissions compliance entirely. Building EVs eliminates the risk of emissions fraud because there are no emissions to regulate. Companies that once resisted electrification are now rushing EV programs to market as insurance against future emission scandals. But the EV transition creates new regulatory challenges. Battery manufacturing, electricity generation, and disposal processes all have environmental impacts that regulators are starting to scrutinize. And the assumption that electric vehicles automatically solve environmental problems is being challenged by life cycle analysis that examines total environmental impact from manufacturing to disposal. How this scandal changes car buying decisions is already visible in sales data across luxury segments. Buyers are now researching emissions compliance records before making purchase decisions. They're asking dealers for documentation proving vehicles meet environmental standards honestly. The assumption that expensive cars are automatically clean and honest has been permanently shattered. Smart buyers are now demanding extended warranties that specifically cover emissions-related problems and software updates. They want protection against the financial consequences of buying vehicles with hidden environmental fraud. Luxury car warranties are being rewritten to address buyer concerns about systematic manufacturer deception. What to look for when purchasing luxury vehicles has fundamentally changed. Buyers should demand complete emissions testing documentation, not just manufacturer claims. Independent verification from third-party testing organizations provides more reliable information than manufacturer marketing materials. Recent model years with updated testing requirements offer more assurance than older vehicles that were certified under the compromised system. The resale value protection has become a critical consideration for luxury car buyers. Vehicles with clean emissions records and transparent compliance documentation hold their value better than models from manufacturers with fraud histories. And the market is rewarding honesty and punishing brands that built reputations on systematic deception. Long-term effects on automotive regulation extend far beyond emissions testing. Regulators are now applying the same verification requirements to safety systems, fuel economy claims, and performance specifications. The assumption that manufacturers honestly report vehicle capabilities has been replaced by mandatory independent verification across all regulatory categories. The international coordination of these new requirements means manufacturers can't escape enhanced scrutiny by selling in different markets. European, Asian, and North American regulators are sharing testing data and compliance information. A fraud discovered in one market now triggers investigations across all global markets where that manufacturer operates. This regulatory transformation represents the most significant change in automotive oversight since safety regulations were first implemented. The industry that once operated on trust and self-certification now functions under constant surveillance and mandatory verification that makes fraud nearly impossible to hide. 3 critical lessons every car owner needs to understand from Porsche's collapse. First, luxury pricing doesn't guarantee honest engineering. Premium brands can lie just as easily as budget manufacturers. Second, emissions fraud affects your wallet directly through decreased resale values and increased insurance costs. Third, regulatory enforcement has permanent teeth now that can destroy entire brands overnight. Protect yourself from similar scandals by demanding independent emissions verification before buying any vehicle. Research manufacturer compliance records and avoid brands with fraud histories. Subscribe for more automotive industry exposés that reveal what manufacturers don't want you to know.